Did you know that your mineral balance can actually affect everything from your mood to your sleep to your metabolism? Stay tuned to today's episode to find out more. Welcome back. My name is Sarah. This is a Sarah Kleiner Wellness YouTube channel. And today I have Barton Scott, who is a biochemist and a nutritionist here on the show to talk about our minerals and how those things fundamentally affect everything from our metabolism, the ability to lose and gain weight, to our personality, our depression, our anxiety. All of these things can be related to your mineral imbalance. And I've had other doctors on the show before to talk about mineral imbalances, but what Barton says is very interesting, that most of us have some sort of a mineral imbalance that's contributing to our health in some way, shape, or form. We even go into hormones and how mineral imbalances can affect our hormones as well. So such an interesting show today. There are going to be links to everything we talk about down in the show notes. And as usual, you can save on any of the upgraded formulas products with my code YOGI12 or YOGI if you've already used that one before. There's also going to be a ton of timestamps down in the show notes as well, in case that you want to skip around and go back to any topics that you find really interesting in the show. So make sure you check those out as well. Speaking of which, I want to thank a couple of sponsors before we jump into today's episode. The first one is going to be Viva Rays. This is my go-to source for circadian rhythm glasses. You can use my code YOGI to save at Viva Rays. And again, these are my go-to source for protecting my circadian rhythms, blocking that artificial light at night, which has been linked from anything to obesity, to cancer, to depression and anxiety. So yes, we're going to talk about minerals in the show, but always protect those circadian rhythms as best as you can for your optimal health. Viva Rays, code YOGI to save. And the second sponsor of today's episode is going to be Optimal Carnivore. You can use my code carnivore, uppercase Y, to save over at Optimal Carnivore. Just fantastic for filling in any nutritional gaps that might be missing in your diet. And I love their organ meat complex. Used it before pregnancy, during, and now after to continue to stay healthy and have my best energy. So thank you to those two sponsors, and I hope that you guys enjoy today's episode with Barton Scott. Let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited to have a friend of mine and a returning guest, Barton Scott, who is the founder of Upgraded Formulas, and talk about all things minerals, hormones, lots of great stuff. So thank you so much for being here today, Barton.
Such a pleasure to come on with you again. Yeah. Love our conversations.
Yeah. I think just to kind of recap minerals a little bit before we jump into maybe some of these things about hormone balance that we were going to talk about today. How many people would you say are struggling from some sort of a mineral imbalance?
All for sure.
You think?
All. Yeah. Yeah, even the CDC, which we know is obviously like very, let's see, what's a good word? Biased is certainly true, but conservative for sure in whatever they're reporting. They even said something like 96% of people are struggling with with 4 deficiencies. I believe it's 4. And I've seen that in what we do for the last, ever since I've discovered this different testing method, ever since it's, I've been in this world, I've seen that be true. I mean, everyone has something to improve. You take too much of something, you take too much vitamin D, for example, you take too much calcium, you supplement iron, God forbid, without testing.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, especially even if your blood test, that's an interesting, juicy part, a tangent we could do that would be literally might save some lives, is just understanding the iron in your blood versus iron in tissue is very, very different, and what to do about it. So that's something we could cover.
I'd love to talk about that as well. There's so many things you just threw out there.
Yeah.
But that is something that I hear a lot is, my blood test shows that I'm anemic, that I have low iron. So how might a hair test actually show something different and maybe give them a different pathway to deal with that?
Sure. So yeah, the big thing that we do for anyone that hasn't heard Sarah and I's previous conversation, if you haven't heard those, I highly encourage you to check those out, because humbly, we cover a lot of things that I don't hear almost anyone else cover in those. So, and it literally is information you'll need for the rest of your life. It's not going to just change like a fad or something. It's foundational, which is why, as a biochemist, I chose to study this area so deeply and research it and improve it. And ultimately, just a little background, was working to not only fix my own brain fog, but I was born to older parents and we were really close. And I got lucky in that, but also not so lucky in that they were, my mom started to have issues and I knew medication wasn't going to solve it. And we were able to improve some things before she passed. But ultimately, I think the takeaway for everyone is, have you ever lost anyone you really cared about and you felt like no one could help them, including you? So that's really where this came from. And yeah, so back to the iron discussion. Yeah, I mean, there's more story on the website on upgraded formulas if people want to see that. There's a video about that, but so I'll skip some of that and just just try to give you as much value as you're listening to this. So if you know anyone that has been diagnosed in low iron, let's just start there. I think that's the best place to start.
Very common, especially in women, I find.
Right. Now, the knee-jerk reaction, and don't get me wrong, I have taken years to do it because I wanted to make sure people had good testing and we, access to consultations with people, and they weren't just taking supplements. That, granted, other people will sell iron supplements, so we could do that. So in general, I'm not a fan of supplementing iron unless it's truly, truly needed. And the only way you'd really know that is in the hair. There isn't another way. Blood is you on your best behavior. And in the case of iron, it's outright lying to whoever's reading the test, to you, or whoever you're working with, because if it shows low, it actually, in almost every case, means that your body had so much iron. Even if you're a woman who's menstruating, your body had so much iron. It's not hard to get a lot of iron in your diet, like it is plenty of magnesium, plenty of potassium. Like, try to get plenty of ample amounts of potassium every day, and you'll have to radically change your diet if you're most people.
That's a tough one for sure.
Yeah, for sure. That iodine, like everyone's deficient in these. Now, iron, though, our body has an iron recycling system, and something like 97% of the iron is recycled. It's a huge amount, and then we're eating some on top of that. Iron, though, it causes oxidative stress on the body, and that's important to understand because that's a hallmark of aging, and it's a hallmark of inflammation, and it's for just like it's a tremendous energetic load on the body. That's how you have to think about it. So if your blood shows low, obviously get a hair test anyway, but because there's so many other things that we can talk about from that's truly changed my life. I mean, you see thyroid function, adrenal function, all sorts of things.
Oh yeah.
If you know how to really read it, or if you work with someone that does, and we can support there. But the thing with this is that your body is literally shuttling it out of your blood to make sure that you're safe. You have too much of it. That's why it's low in your blood in almost every case. Now, I can't say that without testing. I mean, we're focused on this holistic picture. I'm focused on this holistic picture before even the company started years ago, where we can't just supplement things. Like, that's just not intelligent. Like, you're different. not only are you and I different right now, we have different energetic need outputs, for example, requirements. Maybe you do CrossFit and I swim a couple miles every day, or maybe someone is sedentary and you're moving and you're getting your 10,000 steps and you're sweating and you're hitting the sauna multiple times a week, and all of these things are different. Yeah, you just gave gave birth, all these different things. Like, wow, a lot of nutrients are needed. You went through a traumatic breakup, all these things. So what I'm writing about is how nutrition becomes personality. And that's what we demonstrate. And that's really what we're talking about here, because I know as a kid, I was in my head a lot. And you can probably relate to this if you're listening to this at some point, right? It's a human condition. But looking back on life, I had all the signs of magnesium deficiency, which is one way to combat this. The other is giving blood, the iron conversation, by the way, to go back to that. Yeah. So
that can help with heavy metals too, right? The blood.
Yes,
yeah. That's one of my favorite things to tell people. Just try that out.
Yeah. If you feel lighter for the next day or so, great. And people need blood, and there's plenty of people that aren't making enough time to go and do that often enough. So it's
I'm an O negative. So anytime I give blood, they start stalking me after 6 weeks. They just call, they keep calling.
Right. No,
and I always feel amazing after giving blood, but you know, I know everyone doesn't have that experience, but I always feel so good after giving blood. And I was always one of those, like, you're anemic. I haven't been since probably in the last 10 years. And I didn't have it during pregnancy either, which is amazing. But, you know, giving blood always makes me feel good. And I've seen the difference on a hair test in my heavy metal levels actually going down in between times of giving blood too. So just throw that in there is kind of interesting.
That's great to hear. I went back home this weekend and I told my dad and my stepmom that, you know, hey, one item this week, go give blood. And I also would say too, if you're traveling outside of the US, like you still want to, like, they still have to, they're still required to actually screen your blood before they give it to someone. So they'll tell you, like, oh, if you travel outside the US, you know, like, let us know. And then they might flag you and not let you give blood. That's their responsibility anyway. And yeah, I mean, as far as, well, I'll leave it at that. And okay, so those are a couple of good ideas. And then copper supplementation, certainly, especially if someone has a fast metabolism versus a slow metabolism, which we can also see on the hair test. So your ability to burn fat, or fuel in general, to efficiently, you know, does your mitochondria. Metabolism is, you know, essentially a measure of the mitochondrial, you know, function. How efficient is your body at a cellular level? And all these nutrients we're talking about really are so much more important than just vitamins, for example. I mean, these are foundational, elemental, periodic table stuff, which is what we know. So just think back to seeing a periodic table and being told, okay, this is everything that we know of, at least on the planet. And if you're not getting these things, we know for a fact you're going to have issues. So one product that I'm really proud of now is that we're about to put out, by the time this show's up, it'll be out, is Upgraded Mood. Because in Upgraded Mood, we have lithium as well as our magnesium and chromium. And just that balance of things is, I mean, it's so important, because people that have no lithium in the water that they drink, the groundwater, and I believe it was Arizona, but, you know, people, if you're interested, just look this up. It's easy to find. No, not enough lithium, which we think of as a drug, which is actually just an element that our body actually needs some amount of daily, ideally, is really, really important for staving off depression. And what they found, shockingly enough, is the highest rates of suicide in the country correlated directly with the amount of lithium in the groundwater, or lack thereof. There was not enough. Yeah. So when it's not there, so that's why I call that one upgraded mood. And yeah, it's really pivotal. It's really important.
Interesting. I want to jump back to this thing about the metabolism really quickly, because I know a lot of my listeners have maybe done the hair test. And is it true that the metabolism can shift and change? Like they might do a hair test on one and it says they're fast, and then they go back and say it's a slow. Like why does that happen for people?
Yeah. So our metabolism is built really from our mineral intake, because that influences, our cells can only make energy to the extent that they have magnesium, copper, oxygen. Otherwise, they don't produce ATP, right? And we die instantly. Our heart stops beating instantly without magnesium and the ability for that mineral to allow the muscle to relax. We think of potassium as cramp prevention, and that's really not true. It's very, very much magnesium with potassium as the second. Now, most people are deficient in both, for sure. Like 80%
I would say
on
potassium
one,
deficiency is like
insane.
I mean, we talk roughly a lot about magnesium, but potassium, I feel like, is almost even a bigger issue for some people.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just magnesium just does so many things in the body, right? So you notice it immediately. It can change your confidence. Like I remember growing up as a kid, that's what I was saying earlier, my mood just wasn't there. As in my head a lot. Felt like I needed to conserve energy. I also wrestled at a high level, so I was, extreme output, played football, all these things. And but yeah, if you ever find yourself constipated or low energy or any of the other things, you can look up symptoms of magnesium deficiency. There's a really long list because it's so essential, and that does help balance iron levels in the body too, because they're antagonistic, those minerals. So again, we see all of that with hair. With blood, outside of everything I just said, something that's really important to understand is that your body is pulling from your bones and your tissues to push into the blood, because the blood is the lifeblood. It's the river that leads all the nutrients to your body and brain and everything. So the reason why our minerals are different, what I figured out in 2016, using some chemical engineering principles and understanding that we could use high voltage to create a plasma out of minerals, so that everything you've ever learned about forms of, take this form for that, doesn't need to be true anymore, not for our products at least. So we can take literally just like elemental magnesium and create a drastically different product. And we might call it something like magnesium, that's in the category of that I've created called stabilized nanominerals, but it's really quite different. We're binding it with chloride afterwards. And what's happening there is your body is able to, whether it's magnesium or selenium or iodine, when it's drinking in that plasma state, it's the same thing that when you get magnesium, let's just take that one as an example, from food, your body does it ask for, multiple forms of magnesium? The answer, hopefully, I think everyone is on really clear on, is no, it doesn't.
Right.
So that is, I knew that, and I knew, well, okay, that's what's required. So what we're able to do is actually have our products be absorbed without digestion, and that greatly influences personality in a positive way when you know your results and you know you need to take things. So it's really interesting because it's how you show up in relationships with yourself and with other people. It's how much energy you have, which is a big determining factor, right? For everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely.
Like how many arguments start when someone's tired?
Don't come to my house right now with a 4-month-old baby.
4 months. Yeah. I'm just impressed you showed up for this interview. Wow.
You know, when you sleep deprived marital spats are very interesting. We usually laugh the next day, but yeah. It's like, okay. After that third wake up, I probably shouldn't have said that, or that was a dumb fight, you know? So yeah, the sleep deprivation and the mood is like a very serious thing for real.
Ooh, that makes me so excited to have kids.
I knew what I was getting into. I think with the first one, you don't really have any idea. The second one, you know what you're getting into, and you're just like, all right, I know I'm just going to suffer through this first part, and then it will get better. But yeah, the first one will break you in. So yeah. Last night I was like, can I give the baby anything? Can I give the baby magnesium? I'm like, nope. They actually have this new topical rub for babies that's magnesium. And I'm like, I don't know. Probably gonna wait a little while for that one. Yeah.
I mean, you could give the baby a small dose, like eighth dose type thing. And in fact, babies, infants, I don't think we've talked about this before. So we've worked with parents that have had a child that's crying incessantly, just will not stop crying. And it's usually heavy metal toxicity, which can be treated with mineral supplementation if you absorb it and if you pull out. So binders as well. So doing like a powdered binder, so that you can just like mix into breast milk. Lots of fascinating stuff, but certainly because it's either that or sometimes chiropractic adjustment. But
we do chiropractic,
which is wild to think about
twice a week right now.
It's an infant, but
we've been taking him since he was first born to the chiropractor. So
there you go.
It's very helpful. Been good for me too. I
mean, we get smushed like coming out often.
Exactly.
It's not easy. So makes sense.
Well, the whole so I guess going back to metabolism thing. So people switch basically based on their mineral levels. Is that what I'm kind of understanding?
It's largely that, because minerals, I know you want to talk about hormones too. Minerals are the building blocks of hormones in a big way, like fats are too, sure. But without minerals, like you're just not going to make the right amount of estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, any of it. And both men and women, just for anyone that doesn't know that, do. And in fact, women have more testosterone than they have estrogen in their body. So it's very important. And by a lot, it turns out. I've oddly enough, I've seen numbers that range from 10 times to 30 times. But so, and obviously it's different for different women too, right? You can some women, you can just tell they must have a lot of testosterone. Some women, you can tell they must have a lot of estrogen, just their attitude, their personality. So
what would be the attitude or personality differences? I'm curious.
High estrogen is driven by high copper. And whether it's a man or a woman, they'll be more feminine and typically more creative. Now, that doesn't, at some point, as you tip the scale, the seesaw between creativity and you could think of it as structure, right? It's really masculine, feminine. It's like, so too much zinc, highly analytical, will be a great maybe project manager, CPA, things like that. You start giving your, like, definitely don't buy a copper supplement for your CPA. Like, you want them to be analytical. That personality is nice. Like, it is helpful. seemingly too interesting. I think a lot of marriages would be saved with mineral balancing because you have people that are attracted, then they come together, they start eating the same diet, and whoever's like, there's just I think just for that reason, there could be a lack of polarity, but certainly just because someone's taking in more or less copper or has copper toxicity or something that you would only see in a hair test, hidden copper toxicity, which is, again, the body is shuttled it just like iron that we talked about out of the blood into the tissues, and it's sequestered it away. So it's hidden it away, and it's no longer bioavailable right now, and it is toxic to the body, and you'll see it come out in your hair. But where were we? So zinc and copper. I mean, it's just really important for understanding that, and that certainly plays a role in metabolism hugely. So calcium and phosphorus are like, that ratio is essentially your it has a lot to do with your metabolism, a lot to do, but so does your adrenal ratio, so does your thyroid ratio. So that overall mosaic is how we look at things. And everything is tabulated from that. So you're able to see, okay, maybe you're slow and fast, and they both have advantages. Like a slightly, you want to be on the cusp between fast and slow.
I was going to say slow one or fast one, or those like kind of the sweet spots for people to be in. Because I'll have people that are like, oh, I have a slow metabolism. Like, was it a slow one? And they're like, I'm like, that's actually not bad. That's actually pretty good. That's a sweet spot. So
years ago, I was a slow 4, even though I had a 6-pack, and I was a slow 4, which is like, whoa, talking about just like eating well and like not making any nutritional mistakes. But I was so taxed from heavy metal toxicity, copper toxicity, low magnesium levels, low sodium levels. It was a lot. So, and with me, I just found that I could never really replenish until I had what we have today, which is ability to absorb the nutrients, like majority of them, without really even using energy from the digestive system. Because most of us have at least some level of leaky gut, unfortunately, because our ancestors were, not that they did everything right either, but we're designed to be able to go several days without food, like as a tribe, right? We would kill a deer, for example, and you'd eat and sort of feast for several days and not eat anything for several days, or eat very, very, very little. So in that not eating, we were healing and sealing the gut. So,
and then we're really only supposed to get about 1/3 of our energy from food. The other 2/3 is sunlight and grounding. And, because food is really just another form of electrons. And so if we're, people don't do that. They live indoors and they're eating 10 times a day. And like you said, they never fast, they never heal their gut, and they're not getting sunlight. They're not connecting to the earth. And so that destroys the gut too, is just making that food your only energy source instead of relying upon, the way that our ancestors did, fasting, living outdoors, that sort of thing. So I totally agree with that.
I love that. Yeah. 1/3. I love that. My feet right now, even though we're doing this podcast, are sitting on a pimp
grounding mat. Nice.
Grounding mat.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It does. Yeah. It's got a bunch of cool gadgetry, and I mean, EMF harmonization in the house, and still plenty of plants, and air purifiers, and all sorts of water gadgetry, and just
same. It's like a lab in my house.
Totally. That's what it honestly, it's what it takes though. Because you want to live as close to nature as possible. Otherwise you just won't live as long or as well.
Exactly. As well. I mean, it's not necessarily to live forever, like this long life, but to be healthy while you are alive, and you're a young 60 or you're a really old 60. Like there's a difference between the two. So, Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, my dad is 78 now, and this woman I just started seeing, she saw a video of him. He was, he's a wrestling coach, and he was like kind of picking at me. It's like almost a love language. So we like got an underhook and we started to wrestle. He was a wrestling coach for a long time, and he was mine growing up too, even though, much older parents. He kind of came out of retirement, and she's like, wow, how old is he? Like, there's no way he's almost 80. Like he seems like he's like late 50s, and really only that because of the gray hair. He's not overweight. He moves well. Is like, you can hear it in his voice. There's a happiness, a jovialness. So was able to, finally, give him some nutritional advice that he followed. And it's amazing how you see people turn around. He's healthier now than he was a couple of years ago when he was on different medication to overcome prostate cancer and different things like that, which I think was just a big symptom of losing my mother. We have these emotional blocks. I just say that to exemplify how emotion plays a big trigger portion in that. And actually, that is something, I know we didn't talk about this before, but one of the life-changing things I've done in the past couple of years was spending a long time getting certified in NLP for trauma release specifically. And I met some other great people in there. And I was like, we should add this on to what we do. So we have one or two coaches right now, and we're growing that for people because it's the most effective way to remove. It's so efficient, Sarah, that I don't even think of it as therapy. I think of it as a process that you do, sort of like going to yoga with an instructor or something. Like it works, you do it often because it works, sort of like you bathe often because it works.
Right.
It's like,
right.
But it really, like, it's changed my life so much. Like, I used to have these hangups with jealousy, for example, like around in relationship. And I was like, this doesn't even seem like me. And what I've learned is we inherit things emotionally. That is how evolution happens. We inherit primarily good things and we evolve. But we also inherit the charge from our grandfather or grandmother when they were raped, or they lost someone, or they had someone died in front of them and they had this thing,
right.
Or they didn't feel loved, or they felt unsafe, whatever it is. They're robbed or stabbed or whatever it is. That unfortunately does get transferred. Fortunately and unfortunately, that's how evolution happens, because the good lessons come through that way too.
Right.
So it's just like processes to remove that. So anyway, I know that's not the focus, but it's so powerful to share, to just at least give people awareness.
To talk about the whole trauma aspect, because I'll have people that really do all the right things, and they've eating the right things, getting the right nutrition, the right mineral balance, and getting sunlight, circadian health, all that stuff. And they're still not where they want to be. And I'm like, there's a trauma component here. I'm sure of it. And I don't want to get all in your business and ask you your personal life stuff, but is there something that you're not letting go of? Is there some, what is your body trying to hold on to here? Probably to keep you protected. But it's time to take a look at that as to why you're not healing, why things aren't getting better. So I think that's an important topic to bring up for sure.
Yeah, that's really good. The thing I think of most is weight gain and and for sure that's emotional. Especially when it's sudden, and especially when it comes after something like a breakup or whatever. Like it's so clearly emotional. And also thyroid issues, like
which are huge,
really all of them. I would say yes, also your thyroid from a nutrition perspective. I want you, as you're listening to this, to go, okay, this, like, hopefully this is really clear, I suppose. So your gland is only ever, and it's funny, I don't hear people say it this way, but your glands are only ever happy when they're producing the hormones they want to produce. Like, period, end of story. Like, your thyroid just wants to put out thyroid hormone, and to the extent that it can, it's going to start producing antibodies as a warning system. So yeah, like, it's just that simple. So do you need the minerals that it takes to produce those hormones? Yes. And do you need a test for that? Yes. Like, it's sort of crazy when you think about it, that we live on this planet and we know what it's made of, and we don't test ourselves very often for that in a way that is accurate. And that, I mean, that is what I've found hair to be easily the best, like, not even a close second place for that. And that influences this as well. So yeah, it just, nutrition becoming personality is what we're all about. And also just like the mental nutrition. What are you feeding yourself, feeding your mind?
Yes.
And what did you come preloaded with? Like, so
absolutely.
And just knowing that it can all be improved. Yeah. Is like, absolutely. I think some of the most, like, hope inspiring aspect is, like, you're not who you were yesterday if you don't choose to be. And unless you choose to identify with that self fully, like, you can, it's just,
yeah, absolutely. Well, let's jump into the hormone balance topic a little bit, and just specifically the testosterone topic. I think is really interesting. And that's one thing on my fertility journey, I kept on having recurrent loss, and I did IVF and it didn't work.
Remember.
And I had low testosterone, and I was actually able to bring mine up naturally through cold water immersion, circadian rhythms, red light therapy. I actually got it from a 5 up into almost a 40. And then boom, pregnant. So I think it's all of it. And the minerals, like, cold,
too. I love that you mentioned cold too, cold and heat. And light.
I've got a Morosco forge now of my very own. Yeah, I've got a forge, and I've got a sunlight and sauna here at the new house. So I'm a big believer in those things for helping improve your mitochondrial health, for sure.
Same. Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
I will say, amazing, like, though. Cold can be difficult for people that have adrenal weakness if it's severe.
Agree.
So that's my only caution, that I don't see. I know you know that, but there's plenty of people that are just like, if you could do it every, like, 3 times a day, it's, hold on.
No.
It's like, or
I have a forge, and I don't do it more than like 2 to 3 times a week because I'm breastfeeding. And it's like, sometimes 2 times a week is plenty, but it's great. Yeah.
That's perfect. I feel like sauna too, like, people overdo it. They stay
super careful.
They stay in too long. The research I've seen is 20 minutes. I think it was 170. 4 times a week. And that is like where the benefits are that I've seen, at least. Now, can you stay in longer? Could you maybe have marginal benefits if you did? Yeah. And also the seesaw will tip at some point, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and like, careful with your brain getting that hot. Our brains aren't meant to get that hot. So
agree.
Yeah.
So the testosterone issue.
Testosterone. Yeah. I'd love to go that. So one of I remember, like, thinking, I really want to give people what they're needing. And I polled Upgraded Formulas audience, and we got different versions. People said hormone support. They said, a number of different things. And a lot of it was just, I was like, what is this? This is symptoms of low testosterone. And you see that now. There's an epidemic of men that are, for the first time, really being pointed at for being the cause of infertility issues as much or more even than women, which to me is not surprising at all, because women typically have a nutritionist. They look after their health, just more often. And they're just more in tune because their bodies are just this orchestra. So and guys are too. It's just different. And we both need testosterone tremendously, women and men. So if basically, and I know like a few of my friends that are really fit women in their early 30s, and they're on testosterone cream. I didn't realize until we had these conversations. And like, and then one even works for me as a nutritionist that takes some of the hair test consultations. And this is all virtual, by the way, if anyone needs this. But so you can order it from anywhere and whatnot. But so I created something called Upgraded Tea, and it's 5 ingredients that are all clinically studied. That are, let me say that differently. Yeah, they're clinically studied, but these are the versions in the products are actually the ones from the studies. So that makes a tremendous difference, because it's sourced well. It doesn't have heavy metals. It's tested at that point, and then we test it too as we mix it. Oddly enough, most companies do not test every batch, even if they say they are third-party tested. I personally take all the products for myself, and this is in one way just a pursuit for me to have everything I want. And
I know how that is.
And that's a journey I've been in for 13 years. So yeah, you know how it is. It's like, well, what do I, so, and I also look at what does everyone else need, and try to give them that too. So it also has the dose of each, like these 5 ingredients, and the benefit you get is actually that your mitochondria works better, that you have a lot more blood flow head to toe. And yes, that can be more sensitivity for women, and that can be better erections for men. And it's just getting you healthy, instead of, for example, guys taking Viagra or women using like testosterone creams to have better orgasms. That's obviously not solving a root cause. I think we're all very, very aware of that. So it's like, wouldn't you want to do that? This also boosts collagen production. And so it's like, literally, like, I'm always looking for, can it make you healthier while making you look even better, type thing. That's just my sort of Venn diagram that I'm looking for. You don't only, luckily, like, the healthier you get, the more you find your ideal weight and your ideal look, and you move better and life is easier. But yeah, free and total testosterone, just one of the ingredients. By the way, if anyone, just one of the ingredients boosts testosterone 23% in 90 days. The early results, we've had a few people trial it. A 300 point increase in testosterone for a 35-year-old that was healthy and like very, very fit. Eric is a really good friend, and I helped him dial in his nutrition. He had run 12 Ironmans. He's an entrepreneur as well, and full of life and energy, and had healthy testosterone for sure. Full of life, like as full of life as anyone I know, really, at any age. And like happy, joyous, loving, all these things. He was qualifying for Kona, the World Championship Ironman, and it was 104 degrees heat, and he passed the number 8 and number 10 guys in the world to be able to qualify. And they were out because they had cramps, and he was taking our magnesium during to not have cramps, and our charge before and during, and his water, so, which is our electrolyte. So Yeah, this is, again, it all goes back to, are you absorbing it? Now, Upgraded Tea is the only product that doesn't have our proprietary absorption technology, but it has the actual products and ingredients from the clinical studies. So that product collectively has over 50 clinical studies on it for those doses too. So it's really, really amazing. I think if you're a healthy 30 or 40-year-old, you probably won't even need to take but maybe one capsule, I don't know, 4 or 5 days a week, and you'll, after you've built that sort of resilience and baseline. Yeah, so I mean, that's from a hormone perspective, is really what people want, is because you have this sense of vitality, and your emotional resilience is so much better. Like, you get bad news and it doesn't ruin your day, it doesn't ruin even your hour. You know, you just, like, what would be devastating for you otherwise is just like, you're just so much stronger. It's not that you're emotionally bypassing, you're just so much more resilient, which is, if you could think of yourself almost in a God mode or superhero mode, that is just getting you closer to it. And that was the goal. And I'm really happy with this product. It's very experiential for people, and yeah, so that's some of what's important about it.
Yeah. And now this podcast definitely is not medical advice, as any of them are, but someone would probably want to monitor their blood levels if they take this product, would you say?
For testosterone, yeah, for sure, yeah, you want to look at it. Granted, yeah, I think it's one of those felt things too. Like, if your testosterone wants to go too high, that's really hard to achieve. So, like, just playing around with your dose. Ideally, testing your blood before, so you have a baseline. You get to see it jump is pretty cool.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Test, don't guess is actually, I'm totally happy with people using that phrase, but we actually own it. We own that slogan worldwide. So, yeah.
Wow.
So,
I hear a lot of people using that.
Yeah. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it, you know?
Yeah.
But
I
it does
have one
matter.
more question. Oh yeah. I think it's a great thing. It's a great statement to live by. One question I wanted to ask you is, do you find that most people could benefit greatly and have a lot of downstream health problems because their sodium and potassium is not balanced?
Yes.
You think that's pretty like foundational for anybody listening this? Like, I want to get started with mineral balance or anything at all. Do you think that that's really the place where they need to start?
That is huge. That's a great question, Sarah. That is huge. It's a really big one. It's hard to say only that. Because it could be that, you know, and I know that's not really what you're saying, but that's a huge part. And I would say sodium to potassium ratio, for example, if you're low on that ratio, lower than where you should be in the reference range, at some point you can all but guarantee that the person will experience or exhibit, or both, bipolar disorder, or something that you would be labeled as that. Mood swings, energy swings, tremendous lack of safety and not feeling safe in your own body. So yeah, this is how nutrition really becomes personality. That's why I talk about it all the time, and I'm so passionate about it, because we see so many people that are going through dark times right now. Something like 1 in 4 men don't have a close friend they can turn to, or something. It seems like, so get out, hug people, get a bunch of light, take your minerals test. Like, all of these are great ideas, unequivocally, just like factually, objectively. And what else? Where else were we on that? What else to say? What else do we not cover? Oh, calcium. Calcium is crucial, because you take too much vitamin D, your calcium levels go really high, and then it makes it really hard. Yeah. It makes it really hard to absorb your other nutrients, because at a cellular level, you have this interference, and that's huge for metabolism. It guarantees your metabolism will be lower. You'll have to work harder to be really fit, if that's a goal. Or to be any level of fitness, you'll have to work harder. So iodine can help with that. We make a high dose of iodine because a huge study, 6,000 Americans, 96% were deficient in iodine, and some were taking it. Wow. So we don't even have anywhere close to enough. And that is, I believe, a key part of the thyroid epidemic. But also low sodium, potassium, and magnesium is why our adrenals are low, which is also part of the thyroid epidemic. Is the adrenals? They're so connected. So
yeah, I think that's a huge problem. Great.
So it's great thought, and all of it, I totally agree. Yeah, sodium to potassium is very important, and salting your water throughout the day is really the only way I found to have an adequate sodium level. Like, even if you're salting your food, it's not enough. But again, test, don't guess. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I have to jump onto another call, but this has been super interesting, and I think that people are going to find a lot of value from it. I'll definitely put all the links to upgraded hair tests, the new products, in the show notes for everybody if they want to take a look at those. And thank you so much for being here with me today and talking.
Such a pleasure, as always. Thanks for having me, and thanks for listening.